Today I'm going to be talking about my family, and I know Father Aaron's going to be talking about his family as well. So, for those who didn't know, I know I've mentioned this before at a number of the masses, but I'm the second oldest of 9 kids. So I got the 9 kids. Of the 9, 5 are boys, 4 are girls, in that order. And so, my dad's name, first of all, is Raphael, as he pronounces it. Some people say Raphael, but you know there's 3 archangels in Scripture. There's Raphael, Michael, and, of course, Gabriel. So, my dad's name is Raphael. My older brother's name is Michael. They named me Gabriel. Are you catching a theme here? Then they have Matthew, whose middle name is Raphael, Stephen, whose middle name is Michael, Joseph, whose middle name is Gabriel. And then according to my dad, since they had used up the archangel names, my parents stopped having boys and started having girls. So then we have Elizabeth, Rebecca, Emily, and Bernadette, all of whom have the middle name Marie, which is the same as my mother's middle name. Every year on the Feast of the Archangels is kind of like the big feast day for everybody, all of the men in my family at least.
I grew up in a family. Both my parents are still alive. My dad's name is Greg, short for Gregory, and my mother's name is Mary. And my mom and dad, they would have met in college when they were at St. Cloud State University. My dad was one of the soldiers that went over to fight at Vietnam, and when he came back from Vietnam, they reconnected after that time away. They reconnected, and then they decided to get married. And they were both in their middle 20s, I believe, around 25 or so when they got married, and they were 30 when they had me. And then 3 years later is my brother, and you might know him as Father Matthew Kuhn. He's the priest that is down in Alexandria. And then 3 years later after him is our sister, Deanna. And Deanna is married. She has 3 children, so I have 3 nieces, and they and their children, they live down in Missouri, and I was able to go visit them this last Thanksgiving and spend some time with them there. When we were growing up, I being the oldest child and all of that, my experience was because of my dad's life in the full-time Army National Guard. We moved around a lot. I was born in Redwood Falls, Minnesota, and after 1 year, my parents tell me that we moved, and we moved to Alexandria, Minnesota. So I would have been baptized at St. Catherine's Church in Alexandria, down in Redwood Falls. But then I lived all the way until I was in the middle of 2nd grade, and I received my first Holy Communion when I was in Alexandria, in the older part of the church before they had the renovation there. Then during the last part of my 2nd grade year, we moved to Northeast Minneapolis, right downtown Northeast Minneapolis, and we were there for a couple of months, and then ended up moving over to White Bear Lake, which is on the east side of the Twin Cities, east side of St. Paul. And so we lived there for 2 years. So I went to 3rd and 4th grade there in Matamidi was the name of the town. And we lived in a little cul-de-sac area of Willerny. And then right after that, Matamidi. And then, so that was part of our White Bear Lake. So I went to St. Jude of the Lake Catholic School for 3rd and 4th grade there. And then we moved up to Little Falls, and I was in 5th and 6th and 7th grade in Little Falls. And I they've got 2 Catholic churches there in Little Falls. And we went to Our Lady of Lourdes, and I went to the school that was there. It was separate from St. Mary's at that time. And then my mom taught over at St. Mary's as one of the substitutes, and then as one of the permanent teachers there as part of the 3 years that we were there. And then we moved to Cambridge, and that's where I spent 8th grade at the public school, and then transferred over to the high school and did 4 years at the public high school there at Cambridge High School, that's now called Cambridge Isanti High School. And I graduated there in 1996. And also myself, just like my father, I went off and served in the military. I was in the Army National Guard for 6 years, is what I served, but it was National Guard, so I just ended up being um, locally in Minnesota, serving at a few different units. I was down in Cottage Grove at first as part of a military hospital, and I was a medic, combat medic for the Army National Guard there. I went to basic training down at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then I transferred after my senior year of high school. I went down to my advanced training as a medic in Fort Sam Houston down in San Antonio, Texas. Then I came back and landed a job at a local factory and was there working at that factory for about, I suppose, a year or so. I did some other odd jobs at the same time. I did a little bit of construction work. I did working as a server at a Perkins. Um, oh, I feel like I did a few other little odd jobs. I worked at a returns department for a place that was sort of like Amazon of its day. It was called Daymark International. And then finally, I landed at that factory job where I was working as a stock person, moving garbage bags that were in boxes back and forth onto pallets using a forklift and driving around forklift at the factory there. And that's really the time period that the Lord started tapping on my heart and calling me to be a priest, was during that period of my life.
Grew up on a small farm in central Minnesota, just west of St. Cloud, kind of southwest of St. Cloud, in Rockville. And on the farm, we had a Golden Plump chicken barn. They still have a Golden Plump chicken barn. And we've had, in the past, beef cows, mostly Semitoles, but beef cows. We've had horses and pigs, and at some points, we've had sheep and goats, and mostly German Shepherd dogs, although they don't currently have a German Shepherd. But the Golden Plump chicken barn has got in the neighborhood of 50,000 chickens in it, so it is a big barn. Yes, it was a beautiful place to grow up out in the country and in a little town, Rockville, Minnesota. And as I was growing up, when we first started out, my dad, my mom, my older brother, and I were living in a trailer house. And the trailer house that we were living in was in a kind of a swampy area. Anyway, it was, at least it is nowadays, kind of that area is a swampy area. And it's, my dad had built it up a little bit. But it was nearby the shop where he was running his electrical business. He's self-employed as an electrician. And one night, the trailer house was struck by lightning. And so it burned to the ground. Thanks be to God. I was baptized at the time, so if I would have been inside of the trailer at the time, I could be a little saint in heaven. But I guess the Lord didn't want me yet. So my parents took us down the road just a couple miles to my grandparents' place, and we spent the night in the basement. And the storm was so bad that night, which was the reason why they spent the night in the basement at my grandparents' place. I guess it was really miserable to be in the trailer house at the time, during storms, So as we're coming back up the driveway, it's a super muddy morning of May, and my parents tell me that the driveway which was almost a half a mile long at the time, the driveway was so gooey that there were tracks everywhere, and there was a fire truck in the ditch of the driveway halfway up. And we get up to the yard. I'm a little baby. I don't know if I'm crying or I don't remember. I don't remember any of this. My parents had to tell me this. But we get up to the yard, and the firemen actually thought we had died inside, because my dad had a truck in front of the shop, and they thought that we were dead. They tried to get into the house. My parents never locked the doors on anything, even when I was a kid growing up. And they couldn't get in, so they had to axe the door down, and the windows must have been really tiny or something. They just assumed we didn't survive. So when they saw us come in, they were like, "Thanks be to God, you guys are alive." I can't even imagine what that would have been like for them, emergency personnel to come onto a scene like that where an entire family would have been trapped inside of a fire. That would have been devastating for them. We grew up in a house that my parents couldn't really afford to build at the time, so they basically built it by themselves, and it was big, like a big rectangular box. But my dad worked construction and stuff as an electrician, so he had seen a lot of job sites, and he had some friends who were carpenters and stuff, and so he they basically built the house one room at a time, and had some help from some relatives and stuff and some friends, and but for the most part, like, just kind of built it themselves and one room at a time, which means that, like, I started out in the room that's now my parents' closet with my brothers and I. We had little bunk beds, like these little tiny bunk beds in there. And then we eventually grew out of that and moved across the hall. Remember when the 5 boys were starting to get a little bit older and the 4 girls are starting to be born? Because they were in that order, right? So we were 5 boys first in the room that's now my parents' closet. When we grew up and the girls are starting to be born, my parents moved us across the hall. They finished off the room across the hall, and then they gave my sisters the closet. It wasn't a closet at the time, right? It was a bedroom at the time, but it was a small bedroom. Anyway, then my dad used to come in and read stories from the lives of the saints to us as they're tucking us in at bed at night, and pray with us as a family together, kind of like right there at the end of the day. It was really beautiful. So I would go to bed at night, or go to sleep at night, like reflecting on and thinking about these stories from the saints, and just always really beautiful and impactful for me as a kiddo growing up. But when I got to be old enough to go to elementary school, we went to a Catholic elementary school, St. Boniface, in the neighboring town of Cold Spring, because we didn't have a Catholic school in my hometown. But that's also where my parents had gone before, so we were kind of a multi-generation family of St. Boniface. And I guess I went to, when I was going to be in high school, we my parents gave me the choice to either go to the public school, where basically all of my classmates were going, or from the elementary school. So basically all of my classmates from the elementary school were going to be going over to the public school, or they gave me the option of being homeschooled from 7th grade onward, and I chose to be homeschooled, as did my older brother. And then basically they kind of set it up as the normal routine that we'd have. We'd go to the Catholic elementary school, and then we'd be homeschooled after that. And it was such a blessing. It was beautiful. I was a shy, quiet kid all through my childhood. I really got along very well with all of my siblings, all of my family members, the cousins that I would get the opportunity to see and stuff, and some other friends of ours. But I really was a shy, quiet kid at that time, and really all through my youth growing up. But when I got to high school, we got to be part of the youth group that we had in our parish, and I got to be or had to be, I don't know. At the time, it felt like I had to be. Not the youth group, but the some of these other things. My mom used to take us to, well, we used to go to daily mass, which was always just a beautiful thing for me. But then we'd also do things like going to visit the nursing home, which I did not enjoy. Playing bingo with the elderly residents. It grew on me over time. But at first, like, I didn't enjoy it. I can say as an adult now, I'm so grateful to God that we did it, because it really sort of forced me to just have a deeper respect for the dignity of human beings in all stages of life, and it just really is beautiful. Anyway, it's good to see you all. God bless you, and I hope you have a very blessed day today as we continue our journey through this Lenten season. Please know of our prayers for you, and please continue to keep in your prayers all of the families of all of the parishes of our Mary, Mother of the Church area Catholic community. Goodbye.